Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. The NHL playoffs start tomorrow, which means I will be predicting every single matchup all the way to the Stanley Cup final and the Stanley Cup winner, which might be a surprise to some. Kicking it off with the best team in the West, the Golden Knights are set to face the Jets. I think this will be a closer matchup than many predicted to be, because I think the Jets are a surprisingly good team. I think Connor Hellebuyck is going to pull it together through the playoffs. I think Josh Morrissey is going to continue to carry that defense, and I think the offense is going to keep scoring goals. But I do not think in the long term they will outmatch the Golden Knights, which means I am picking the Golden Knights in 6 games. The Avalanche started off the season really slow, but pulled it together for the end of the season. The Kraken also had a surprisingly good season, making it into the playoffs with a fairly strong record, but I do not think they will come anywhere close to beating the reigning Stanley Cup champions. In fact, I'm predicting the Avalanche in 4 games, a clean sweep. I am an Oilers fan, so I might be the slightest bit biased here. But the Oilers really pulled it together for the end of the season. They were playing absolutely amazing. They were on fire, including beating the Kings multiple times. And I think that will happen again. Hence why I am picking the Oilers in 5 games. The Wild had a pretty good season, but they're still struggling with quite a few injuries, and the fact that Kirill Kaprizov is still their only really good playmaker. Meanwhile, I think the Stars have built quite a good team that can make a deep run in the playoffs, which means that I am predicting the Stars in 5 games. The Bruins set records this year for points. It was remarkable how good this team was. Meanwhile, the Panthers were a team that was expected to do way better and just dragged along the entire year. I do think the Panthers will win 1 game this series, because I honestly like Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk together. I think they're 2 good playmakers and 2 good goal scorers. But all in all, there's no way they're beating the Bruins. Bruins in 5. I was surprised the Islanders made it into the playoffs. I wasn't really paying attention to them, and then one day I just happened to look at them, and it's like, they're in a playoff spot. That was 2 weeks ago or so, and they continued to play just good enough to make it in, but not very good. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes are a solid team, although arguably their best player, Andrei Svechnikov, is now out for the season. But I am still predicting a clean sweep of the Islanders by the Hurricanes. The Devils were quite the surprise this year. They came from nowhere and absolutely did amazing. But I have to pick experience once again here. And the Rangers, although many of their players that have been drafted by the team don't have much experience, they traded for Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko, both of whom have plenty of playoff experience, which means I'm picking the Rangers in 5. The Lightning have made it to 3 consecutive Stanley Cups. Meanwhile, the Maple Leafs haven't made it past the first round since 2004. And no question about it, the Maple Leafs outplayed the Lightning in the regular season. But there is a problem here. The Lightning have so much more playoff experience. Every player on their team has been and done it before, because they were in the Stanley Cup final last year, and the 2 years before that, they won. Which means that I have to pick the Lightning. Although I think the Maple Leafs will put up a huge fight. I think they'll bring it to 7 games. But I honestly think the Lightning will win in the end. We are now on to the second round, where I expect the matchups to get quite a bit closer. First off, we have the Golden Knights facing the Oilers. These are 2 good teams with high-powered offenses, especially the Oilers, obviously. But the Golden Knights have quite the offense too, with Jack Eichel and Mark Stone and Jonathan Marchessault. The Golden Knights do get the edge on defense, but I'm concerned about injuries for them. Most of the roster has missed time with injuries this year, including their goaltenders, including most of their defense, including most of their offense. So I have to pick the Oilers here, given their streak, given how well they've been doing lately, and given the fact that it is entirely possible that Logan Thompson isn't ready for the playoffs, which means I'm picking the Oilers, but just barely in 7 games. Next up, we have Avalanche Stars. These are two teams I really like as well. I think any of the 4 teams in the West could honestly go to the Stanley Cup Final. Those 4 teams are really strong. But, as I've mentioned multiple times already, experience is key. And the Avalanche just finished winning a Stanley Cup, while most of the Stars haven't gotten that experience. Although some of them were on the team a couple years back when they made it to the Stanley Cup Final. But I have to give the Avalanche the edge here. They went on a roll near the end of the season. I think the Stars will keep it close. I think this one is also going to go to 7 games. But in the end, I have to pick the Avalanche. Next up, we have Bruins Lightning. And I do not expect this to be a close matchup. The Lightning are getting up there in age. So even if they have experience, plenty of goal scorers, then the Bruins, a lot of them were on the team when they last won the Stanley Cup. And they made it to the Stanley Cup a couple years ago, so I think this Bruins team is built to make a deep run in the playoffs. Obviously, they scored so many points in the regular season. So I'm picking the Bruins in 5. If the Hurricanes were healthy, I would predict them to win the Stanley Cup, honestly. But Andrei Svechnikov's injury bugs me quite a bit. He's one of their big playmakers. Who is really going to take over for him? I think Sebastian Aho is a really good player, but I don't think he has the same skill set as Svechnikov. And I don't think Seth Jarvis or Martin Necas are ready to take over. So I think the Hurricanes still have a hole on their roster. Meanwhile, I think the Rangers are set. This team has built themselves up quite a bit. So I have to pick the Rangers in 6. This would be a fun matchup to watch. I'm rooting for this to happen, not just because I want the Oilers to make it this far, but because I love watching these two teams face off. You've basically got the top 4 players in the league across the past couple of seasons, in Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan MacKinnon, and Cale Makar. But you've also got other goal scorers like Mikko Rantanen, Nugent Hopkins, and Evander Kane, and Zach Hyman, and now I'm just listing off Oilers. But the Avalanche definitely have the edge on defense and in net with other players such as Devin Toews and Bowen Bryant, as well as goalie Alexander Georgiev. But I have to take the Oilers' goal scorers. This offense is supercharged. So in the end, I'm picking the Oilers in 7. Now you might be thinking, Dylan, this matchup is kind of obvious. I mean, the Bruins finished with over 130 points. Meanwhile, the Rangers were fine, but they weren't the best team in the league. They were never anywhere close to the Bruins. And yes, that's fair, but when you look at these two teams on paper, they're actually very similar. They've got some older veterans that have been and done it all. They've got a young goal scorer, Dave Pastrnak or Artemi Panarin. They've each got a star defenseman, Adam Fox or Charlie McAvoy. They've each got really good goalies in Linus Ullmark and Igor Shesterkin. These teams are fairly evenly matched. And here's the problem when a team scores so many points in the regular season. They get a bit cocky sometimes. Sometimes they don't even think their opponents merit much effort, which means that they don't really try and the other team can easily take them. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Rangers are going to upset the Bruins in 7 games. I think the Rangers are going to be making it to the Stanley Cup Final. So this is the matchup we have all been waiting for. Will the Oilers become the first Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup for 30 years? Or will the Rangers' experience and firepower just take them over? Can Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl pull it together and keep their superstar status and demolish the Rangers? Or will the Rangers' goal scorers just demolish the Oilers' defense? What will happen? It is really tough to predict, honestly. But as much as this hurts me to say so much, I think the Rangers have the edge. The problem the Oilers have is they don't have a star defenseman. There is no one on the Oilers you can confidently say, okay, this guy's a superstar. Meanwhile, look at the Rangers. They've got Adam Fox. He is a superstar. They've got Andre Miller. They've got Jacob Trouba. And they've got Ryan Lindgren. Those are all solid number 2 guys. Plus, you've got a superstar net with Igor Shesterkin, who I honestly don't think Stuart Skinner can match up with. Which means, in the very end, I'm predicting the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup in 6 games against the Edmonton Oilers. But we'll see. The Oilers have a chance here. But honestly, any of these teams have a great chance to make it to the Stanley Cup. After the first round, I think those matchups are pretty much set. I suspect my predictions will be right there. But after that, anything could happen. This is a really close race. But for now, thanks for watching.